Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Federico Talks Watches. Today, I'm going to talk about history in watches. Not historical history, but my history in watches. Specifically, the 10 watches I love the most. But the caveat is by defining the most, probably I mean the longest. The watches I've loved for the longest time is probably a better title for this video. So I went and I sat down and I thought of 10 watches that I've loved for the longest time, that I've coveted for the longest time, and I'm going to tell you what they are today and why they are. And of course, it's in no particular order. Before we get started, customary wristwatch check, wearing the Rolex Hulk. And also, guys, go check out delraywatch.com. I've got a green crystal Milgauss. Absolutely beautiful, 2018 box and papers, a first Omega in space, which is also super cool, and a Paul Picot technograph, which is a very interesting chronograph for, I'd say, about 20% of its original retail price. All that and more at delraywatch.com. So yeah, watches I've coveted the most. Now, I remember when I started working in the watch industry, particularly retail, I would see hundreds of watches every day, and every day I had a new favorite. And then somebody told me, you tend to covet the things you're surrounded by every day. So even though my personality is, my list always changes. I always go back and forth between what I love. These are 10 watches that I've loved for a very long time that have always kind of been on the list. Hopefully you guys find it interesting. There's a few watches here you probably know, and a few you may have not guessed. Let's start with the easy ones. The first one is the Rolex Hulk. What can I say? Fell in love with it when I worked at Tourneau. I very rarely saw it. It was always sold out, never to Daytona levels. But even today, I mean, now it's a lot rarer. And as you see, I did manage to snag it in my collection. I just love it because it's the classicness of a Submariner, but with a little bit of a twist. You may remember, I've said this a few times, I don't like to wear what everybody else has. I like something with a twist, and I think you get the classic design with the green, absolutely makes it different. Then we have, and once again, no particular order, the Rolex Pepsi. A watch which I've owned not once, not twice, but thrice. Just picked it up again this year for my 30th birthday. I bought the first one from the Rolex forum when I was working at Wempe, and a customer bought it right off of my wrist for a price that was too good to be true. The second one I bought a couple years after that, and I sold it, and now I bought it for the third time. I don't think it's ever going to leave my collection. At the time, it was always going to be my grail watch, my only watch. I've evolved a little bit. It still has and will likely always have a place in my collection, but it's definitely no longer my one and only watch. Love the pre-ceramic Pepsi, though. Now we have two Patek Philipes. Guys, I know I don't give Patek Philippe a ton of love on this channel, but that's just because they're not a great value proposition. However, there are two I've coveted for a very long time. The first is the Patek Philippe 5146, which is basically a tremendously improved 5035. 5035 is 37 millimeters. It was made and then quickly discontinued for the much more balanced 5146. 39 millimeters. This one includes the moon phase. The sub-dial registers. The spacing is a little bit better. This is probably the watch most people think of when you think Patek Philippe. That's quickly changing to the Nautilus, but I think this one is super iconic. Annual calendar, 39 millimeters. I love the Maltese cross deployant buckle, actually the Calatrava cross deployant buckle, correction. And what can I say? It's just a watch that really speaks to me. Followed by the Patek Philippe 5130p, the last generation world timer in platinum. Now this was worn by my boss at Wempe. I remember he wore it almost every day. And I absolutely fell in love with it. Traveling is a big passion of mine. I love the fact that you could potentially track all those time zones on one watch. The platinum version, I love it because it has the blue center dial and, of course, that little diamond at 6 o'clock. I think this is one of the most elegant watches ever made, but for some reason, it's not. The world timers in general are not really collector favorites, and I wonder why it is. It's such a unique complication. Next, we have a watch I've talked about more than once, the Breguet Classique with the Grandfer enamel dial. Yes, time only, seconds offset. I believe it's at 4:30 on the dial. This is the watch that got me into watches. The watch that my brother was surfing time zone on when I was maybe 16 or 17. He was big into watches. I hated watches back then. For me, it's so stupid to spend more than $50 on a watch. But he called me over. He's like, hey, come check out this watch, the new Breguet. And I saw it and I fell in love. The attention to detail, the enamel dial, hand painted, the coin-edged case. I don't know. It was really, to me, like, if you could own that Breguet, you've made it. And it still isn't in my collection yet, but it will be at some point. Now we have a watch that I've talked about, but maybe you didn't know I coveted. That is the Cartier Santos 100. Not particularly expensive, pre-owned about $4,500. This is a watch I fell in love when I worked at Cartier. You guys may or may not know I started my career, my watch career, or any career, my only career, at Cartier Fifth Avenue as their watch specialist, where I learned all about the history of Cartier, the Cartier designs, the archives, and the Cartier Santos 100 was just gorgeous. The right size for the 21st century, all the design cues of the original worn by Alberto Santos Dumont. Yes, horologically nothing special, 2892 back in the day. Now they've upgraded it with their in-house movement. But it was just such an iconic watch. A watch that nobody could mistaken for anything that wasn't Cartier. This will definitely be part of my collection at some point as well. I love the Santos 100. Now we have another watch that I picked up and that I currently own, and that is the Panerai 111. Guys, I know the Panerai market now is a little bit tumultuous, but if you remember 2007, 2008, 2009, Panerai was the hottest thing in the watch world. Forget Nautilus, it was all about the Panerai Luminor, baby. I love that watch, and me being Italian, it having Italian heritage, once again, the size was right for me. It was just so cool. And this is the watch that at the time, was attainable to me. It was, $4,000 or $5,000. And even though it was a lot of money, it was something that I could see myself owning. Well, eventually I did buy one. It is in my collection. I've fallen out of love with it a little bit. I don't wear it all that often. However, I don't see myself probably getting rid of it just because it's such a classic in my history as a watch collector, and I coveted it for so long, and I finally got it. Gotta love it. Now another watch I fell in love with at Vempe on Fifth Avenue, the Lange Datograph. Big date, flyback chronograph, manual wind. I love the platinum version. There simply has never been a better chronograph in the world. Phillipe Dufour himself, one of the greatest living watchmakers, said that it was strictly built to be luxurious, and there was nothing better. And that is true. Now, this baby has a hefty price tag, around $45,000 pre-owned. I will own it at some point. I'm not sure when. I'm still kind of far away from stepping into that league. But the manual wind datograph with the most beautiful exhibition case back you've ever seen in your entire life is absolutely a watch I've coveted for a long time. Now, another watch influenced by my brother to me, and that is the F.P. Journe Zodiac calendar, one of F.P. Journe's earlier works. It's independent. I love Francois-Paul Journe and what he stands for. A little bit of an eccentric guy. Almost got me fired once. I did make a video about that. And the Zodiac calendar has a bad reputation for being one of the watches he made early on that rarely worked right. But it doesn't matter. A watch that showed the Zodiac calendar complication is just so unique and so cool. The dial was so different. I absolutely fell in love with it. And then last last is a watch I almost bought. I almost bought it on an employee discount, but it was still too expensive at the time, and that is the Jaeger LeCoultre Reverso Grand GMT. Manual wind, dual face, big date, GMT, black dial and white dial, a little bit thicker than usual. I love this watch. The Reverso to me is the epitome of elegance. A lot of people say Patek is the epitome of elegance, but honestly, a beautiful Reverso is hard to beat when it comes to good taste, at least in my opinion. A watch that is in its element in stainless steel, something truly complicated, made by the watchmaker's watchmaker, and I don't know. I mean, what else is there to say? I almost bought one with an employee discount. I got 60% off brand new, but it was still quite a bit of money. I think it was about $12,000 retail at the time. Yeah, and nowadays I do want it, but I do have a lot of dress watches, and I don't wear a lot of dressy attire, so I've been holding back. But it is definitely something I've coveted for a very long time, and that I will absolutely own in the collection. Guys, that was just a quick little rundown of the 10 watches I've loved the most and for the longest, and why it has been. I'm curious to see what you think. Did I surprise you with any of my selections? Could you have guessed most of them? Let me know in the comment section below, and let me know your thoughts. Anyway, fellas, thank you so much for sticking around for another episode of Federico Talks Watches. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. It really does help. And of course, I'll see you in the next one. Take care.